Hi, I'm Karen. I'm one of the educators here at Montavilla Sewing Center, and we're going to talk about the Baby Lock Zest. For a general overview, to start with, we've got where you plug it in, we've got the power switch right here, we've got the hand wheel. The hand wheel will rotate this way, counterclockwise as it's sewing, so if you're going to take individual stitches, make sure you rotate it towards you, not away from you, but towards you. Here we have the bobbin winder spindle and the stopper right here. Here we have two spool pins. Generally you only use one, so we'll just leave that down there. And when you're not using the machine and you don't have any thread on there, just make sure and push that down like that. Okay. Here we have the bobbin winder guide, thread guide. Here we have thread guides for threading the machine. And then down here we have two thread guides. So you notice there's two here, there's two here. That's so that if you do decide to use a twin needle, that's for doing straight stitching, just two lines of straight stitching, you can use two spools of thread. Thread one on the right side, one on the left side, one through each needle. But for regular sewing, just one single needle, you thread your needle on the left-hand side. Then we have the needle, which is of course the business end of the sewing machine, and we have the clamp and the clamp screw right there. Back here we have the presser bar. Now the presser foot presses down the fabric onto the feed dogs, which are below the presser foot down here, and feed dogs are what pull your fabric along. The presser foot can be changed easily. You push this little lever on the back, the foot drops right off, and you can take the foot off and put different feet on. And to put it back on, you put this, line this up, the stitch hole in the presser foot with the stitch hole in the needle plate, lower this down, lift it up, and it's back on. Then the back of the presser bar has a thread cutter. So you take your thread and you pull it down, and you can actually cut your thread that way. You can also, of course, use your scissors. Then we have the needle plate. Now you notice that there's guidelines on the needle plate, so that way you can sew an even distance between the edge of your fabric and your seam line. That's called the seam allowance. Okay, up here we have the selector knob. Now this will select between these different stitches that you have here. The selector knob, you can move it this way. There's a kind of a gradient between the B and C. That's because C is a zigzag, and you can make your zigzag narrower and narrower until it just is a straight stitch, but it'll be on the left-hand side. That's why you have A and B. Basically, they're still straight stitches, but they're one's in the center, one's on the side. I'll show you that. Center, side. So for regular sewing, you want A, because that'll give you a 5/8 inch seam allowance. Then, all of these stitches here, you can change to whichever stitch you want, but make sure that you have your needle up before you change a stitch. You don't want to have it down in the fabric, because then you start sewing again, needle's in a different place, you could bend or break your needle. You don't want to have that happening. Here's your stitch length. Stitch length, you can have a really long stitch, like if you're doing basting, you want to be able to take those stitches out easily, you can do that. Or if you want to do, say, a satin stitch where you have a zigzag and you want that really short and satin looking, you can put this on one. If you move this all the way to 0, you're just going to be stitching in place. Here's where, if you're going to do a buttonhole, and you certainly can do that on this machine, 4-step buttonhole, this is where you'd want to have that, because those stitches are going to be really close together. But for most normal garment sewing, you want to have your stitch length between 2 and 3. This is your reverse lever. When you push this all the way down, the feed dogs are going to move your fabric towards you rather than away from you, and that makes it so that you can seal the ends of your seam so that they don't come unstitched. It's kind of like tying a knot in the end of your thread when you're hand sewing. So that's how you seal that. Another thing is, this here is your tension disc, your tension. If you have a really high number, that would pull that thread tight as you're sewing, a really low number, and you're not going to get any tension on the top thread. In fact, you'd get loops and things on the back. So most of the time you want it right between 5 and 3, right on 4. That's about normal right there. Now there's some variation for that, because if you had a thicker thread you're sewing with, you might want to change that a little bit. Or if you're trying to do some gathering, you might want to make it tighter. But most of the time, let's keep it right there on 4. Okay, we also have the free arm. The free arm is a really nice feature on most machines these days. Have a free arm, and this is so that you can sew the hems of your jeans and just put that hem right around the free arm of the machine. Under here is where the bobbin is located, and the bobbin case is right here. You take it out with like that, and your bobbin is this way. Now when I get into the threading in our next video, I'll show you more about this, but that's where the bobbin case is. Put that back in there like that, close the little door. That's that part. When most of your sewing, you're going to be using putting the cover back on here. That gives you a little more support. Now when you have a brand new machine, you may need to look inside here for your accessories, a little bag of accessories that comes with your machine. So that's the basic overview on the Baby Lock Zest. Thanks for watching. Watch some of our other videos.